Yeah, sure. So I was born in the UK, educated in the UK. I spent most of my career working in the UK, and then in 2008, I was made redundant by Rabobank, and at the time it was very tough to find another job working in banking. So then I decided to start my own company, like some other people who I knew were doing, and I had the choice of not having to live in London. So I thought I would like to go and live in the sun somewhere. Dubai was a great place for me. The Palm seems to be, well, back then when we moved here, it was the most prestigious place to live. It feels like we're not really living in the city. So even though the city is maybe 10 minutes from our home, it feels like we're living in a holiday resort. It's very nice. Originally, when I started my company back in 2009, I would travel frequently back to the UK. And over time, I persuaded some of the people who were working for me in London to come and live in Dubai. And then when we got to around 2013, I realized that it's better for me to hire my own management team in the UK to manage the business. And I can then focus on other business and not only solo capital. When I was working in Morgan Stanley, I first got an idea of the so-called dividend trades. A few of the friends who I was working with, so I wasn't directly supporting the dividend trading desk, but I was socializing with the people who were supporting the trading desk. I was doing a job in what was then called middle office, so liaising between the front office, the people who make the money, and the back office, the people who count the money. So I decided at that point I had had enough experience working in large banks to see if I could be a bigger fish in a smaller pond. When I was at Credit Suisse, I'd been there for a short amount of time. I learned about stock lending. I learned about the motivation behind stock lending. At the time, Credit Suisse, from my memory, wasn't that active in the dividend arbitrage space. By then, I'd become a bit of I suppose, a personality in the market, and I moved to Rabobank in 2007, and I had the opportunity again to build a business, and it was my time at Rabobank that I was first introduced to the so-called Cum-Ex trades, and that really came about because of people who I was already doing business with. They'd approached me and said, "Can you do this thing called short selling?" And I didn't really know what they meant, so they drew it out on a piece of paper, on a napkin, I think, in a coffee shop. And I said, okay, I'll put together a business plan. I will present it to my management. And in 2008, I was involved in short selling to brokers. And things seemed to be going well. And then, as everybody knows, 2008 was the big credit crunch. And very quickly, my whole business unit was closed down. So then I decided to set up a company. The company's name was Solo, and that was because the name means single person, and I was the boss. And I really started from ground zero. So I hired a couple of stock lending guys, and the proposal was really just like a real estate agent. You eat what you kill. We had investors from the US, and we had a successful trading year. And we made money. And for me, that was great because having made no money in 2009, at the end of 2010, I was very happy that the business plan worked. So at that point, I'd made enough money to call it quits and say, okay, I've made multiples of what I expected to make. I can now take this money and pay for my kids' education and have a nice home to live in. But then the feeling really was in 2011, okay, let's roll the dice one more time. And I remember there was a light bulb moment when I think one of my colleagues said, we need a bank, we need to be a bank. So we could clear trades. So clearing just means moving securities and cash from one account to another. and then for that for us that was brilliant, and that was our I would call it a secret at the time. That was our trade secret. We didn't want to share that with anybody. My parties were legendary. They did cost me money, but there was a motivation behind that. It wasn't just to have a good time. It was actually to develop loyalty. So for my clients as well as my staff, I wanted to develop a culture that almost like a hedge fund culture that, you know, play hard, work hard. And sometimes it's, for me, what I learned was rather than giving cash bonuses to my staff, if I flew them to Singapore and put them up in a nice hotel and took them to the Formula One where they would meet the team and so on, that is more enjoyable for them. Enjoyable, maybe not the right word. It's better for me as an employer to get their loyalty by treating them to something like this rather than giving them the money. When share trading became dematerialized, so when shares were traded on electronic exchanges, the tax law didn't catch up with working out who the owners are. So what I believe is that, for example, in the 1960s and 70s, if you were to buy shares, you would have somebody turning up at your office and giving you a bundle of share certificates, and those were the shares. With dematerialization, all those share certificates ended up in a vault somewhere, and the stock exchange would record owners of shares. Now, the two ways of owning the shares are either you own them on the trade date or you own them on the settlement date. Trade date is obviously when you enter into the contract. Settlement date is when you pay for them. So in certain markets, Germany being one of them, Belgium being another, Denmark being another, and there are others, the ownership changed on the contract date. So so on a Monday, if you buy the shares, you're the owner. It doesn't matter when you pay for the shares, you're the owner on that date. However, certain other markets, for example, the US, UK, Sweden, for example, you're the owner when you pay for the shares. So you're only the owner when you've written the check. So it didn't take long for smart people to figure out, well, actually, I can buy the shares and I can be the owner for the 24 hours or the moment that you're the owner of the shares for the dividend, but then I can give those shares back before I have to pay for them. And with the use of a derivative, you don't make or lose money on the share price because you're fully hedged, but you still qualify from a tax point of view to be the owner. That was widely known and widely accepted. And it was just something that people did. It wasn't thought of as illegal. And then you had an inner circle of people who knew about this special trade, which was, as far as I can tell, totally legitimate, because why would a bank, any large bank, allow their traders to do trades which were not legal? And at no point did anybody say this is illegal. In fact, it was the opposite. When we were getting calls from investors on a regular basis from everywhere, from the Far East to the US, saying, oh, we want to invest. How do we get involved? And we had to say, okay, we don't have capacity right now, but we'll contact you if we can. It's possible to execute these types of trades anywhere in the world. In many countries, they haven't closed the loopholes. It just takes somebody to read a tax treaty. and actually, sorry, I just want to, for the record, if I had the ability to run a business, I would immediately get involved in this business again. And that's my plan. My plan is to get involved immediately. I've had discussions with people who've approached me saying, we heard about your story, can you show us how to do that? And I've said, yes, well, you need a bank. And they said, we've got a bank. And I said, okay, where is it? They said, it's in the Caribbean. I said, no, that's the wrong type of bank. You need a bank that can clear securities in the Eurozone, for example. And then I've got the business model and I can say, this is what you need to do. I've got the recipe. From my experience dealing with my peers, there's no one mastermind. There's no one person who's behind the trades. Everybody, well, many years ago, they wanted to take the credit. They wanted to say, oh yeah, we were doing these trades before anybody else. And they all developed it themselves, just from simple, okay, let's look at what opportunities there are in this market. I don't think there is one mastermind, but I think, unfortunately, there are poster boys. So I'm one of them. Hanno Berger is another one. Paul Moore is another one. You know, having our pictures in the press. I mean, that's why I'm here. I'm talking to you now, because I don't have a choice. I was advised, don't leave Dubai, because you will be arrested and you'll be put in pre-trial detention. And now I think, yes, I'm not shy to say, I don't want to leave here because I can live a relatively free life. Why would I take the risk? And I'm not worried about justice. So if I go to a trial, wherever it is, here, Denmark, Germany, let the judges make their decision. But if the judge says, you fucked up, you shouldn't have done that, I would say, okay, I'm sorry about that. I'll give the money back and I'll go to jail. Because the only people I really care about are what my family think. What would my kids think if they thought I'm a fugitive? I'm not a fugitive just yet, but I don't want to be in a situation where the Dubai police are calling me saying, would you please come in and bring your suitcase? And I say, no, I'm going to throw my phone in the sea and I'm going to go live in the mountains. I'm not going to do that. You know, going to prison doesn't mean it's the end of my life. It means I'm being punished. I'll be out of it. And it's like, the way I have to be positive, that if I do go to prison, it's like going into a health spa. Because, you know, no smoking, no drinking, nothing to do but walk around all day. So it's not a bad thing. And if anything, it will make me healthier. I'm now becoming a little bit worried about the political environment in Denmark. And will I really get a fair hearing? So I could be in a situation where so now, today, I could get arrested, get sent back to Denmark. I could sit for a year or two pre-trial. I could then lose, and then I could appeal. The appeal takes 2 years. So I could have spent 4 years in prison, and then the appeal, I could be acquitted. And the other thing is, I feel like it's not that great having my name in the newspapers and my name mentioned everywhere, saying alleged fraud, so on and so forth, because that's already destroyed my reputation, and that's permanent damage. I mean, like I would say, and I try to explain this to my family and my kids as well, that if I really thought I was doing anything wrong, I wouldn't be sitting here now talking to the press. I got to tell you that when I believe I'm going to be clear of this soon, maybe in a year or two. When I will be back in business and I will be pursuing these types of trades. And it's not difficult. Just pick a phone up to a lawyer or go to a recruitment firm and say, who are the guys who are making money? But what I mean by there's always opportunity, it's like there will never be any global unification on tax. My wife, one time in 2018, she's a director of a number of my companies. So she was at the time under investigation. She landed at Gatwick Airport in London, in the UK, and she was arrested in front of our 14-year-old daughter, handcuffed, put in a van, taken to the local police station, spent 12 hours there, had a 4-hour interrogation, and at the end they said, we're keeping your passport until we're happy. And then when it came to the day that she was going to fly back, they said, yes, you can take your passport, you're free to go. But for her, that was very scary because she's not from a banking background. She's, I would say, more or less a housewife. And then she reads in the newspapers that I've been accused of all these things. And she knows, her circle of friends includes the wives of some of the people who live here, who are involved in similar trades. And they all seem to be fine. You know, they all seem to be flying around the world, not in handcuffs, not in prison. Same like me. So what she can't figure out is, are you going to go to prison or not? I made, is hard to tell because I've kind of lost track of, it sounds ridiculous, but I've lost track of how much money I made because I was paying people. So I was paying them profit shares and salaries and so on. I also invested money. I lost money. I would take money that I made from 1 year, for example, and I would do some FX trading, and I made money then. But I made in excess of €500 million. Yeah, yeah, and I still have those assets. So at the moment, my financial situation is everything is frozen by prosecutors, whether they are in Dubai, Germany, UK. That's where my assets are, and I'm allowed money to live on. So the court in the UK has approved for me to get paid every month, living expenses, and also my legal fees, and that's it. They could be furious, but what I would say to them is that, why don't you ask your government why they didn't close the loophole? I don't really know what else to say. My view is yes, it's a shame, but don't blame me. First of all, I'm not the only one who is participating in this business. Secondly, if there's a problem, the government should be fixing it. And it was perfectly legal and legitimate. And just going back to what happened in Denmark, why would they pay out money for years and years? And then after 4 years of payments, they say, oh, we made a mistake or we were cheated. If there's a big sign on the street saying, please help yourself, then me or somebody else would go and help themselves. And just for the record, I think it's well known that Danish banks were doing the same business and the same type of trades on Swiss securities, for example, and French securities. So all well and good that they're blaming me for this, but their own banks were involved in the same business. I do agree that if I've done something criminal, then yes, I'll be punished and I'll give the money back. I won't have a choice. I explained that everything is frozen. And some people may say, oh, you're stupid, why didn't you just hide some money? But why would I? Why would I hide money if I'm not scared? And yeah, they're fully within their rights to punish me by sending me to prison or confiscating my assets. But that's not up to me, that's up to a judge. But yeah, I think the moral thing is a different argument. We can say that about anybody who makes money. Is it immoral for somebody like Jeff Bezos or Elon Musk to have that much money? If you said that's immoral, they would say we made the money legitimately. Why do you think that's immoral? I would say the same thing. I haven't done anything immoral. Okay, well, there are some very easy fixes for Cum-Ex. Very easy. Just change the law so you're only the owner when you pay for the shares, first of all. Secondly, dematerialized shares is not perfect. Right now, there's this new thing called non-fungible tokens, NFT. It wouldn't be, I mean, conceptually, it's very easy to give every share its own token number. And therefore, only one person can own one share at any one time. You know, you can tighten the rules. But unfortunately, smart people will say, oh, okay, I know I have to just do something slightly different in order to in order to get around it. I mean, great example. I can say to my daughter, you can go out, but you have to be home before midnight. And she can come home 1 minute before midnight, but then 1 minute after midnight, she goes back out. And I can say, what did you do? I told you to be home. She said, yes, I did come home before midnight, but you didn't tell me I can't go out after. So you know, smart people will always find a way. And unfortunately, money attracts smart people. Unfortunately, people who work in governments, they are civil servants. They're not the rocket scientists that investment banks can hire. So unfortunately, we are in this cat and mouse game where there will always be the banks and the hedge funds will always be one step ahead.